Okay, this is going to be a quick overview of exam 1, and I'm going to go over some of the questions that people missed. Okay, so I generated an analytics document that basically detects what questions students missed, what were the common ones, what were the common answers they gave. So let's just start with general analytics on the test. There were 33 points on the test, and there was a 33. The average score was 27.7. I gave a bonus point because I accidentally ended the test early the first time through. I ended at midnight, so I reset it for another day. So I gave everybody a bonus point, just a freebie. So average score was 28.7, which equals about 87%, which is pretty good. Alright, so you all did pretty good. So we'll go over some of the questions that people tended to struggle with. Alright, so we'll just go through them one by one. This question, in the Linux terminal, what is a command option? Okay, the correct answer is technically it's an argument, but it's a specific and predetermined argument defined by the program itself, usually starting with 1 or 2 hyphens. Okay, so let's look at a terminal. Alright, so ls is a command. That's the command name, and that's the command itself. You type space, anything you provide this command separated by spaces are arguments. Okay, an option is a special kind of argument that's defined in the program. It does a special type of thing when you type in this option. Okay, we know this by, if we look at the man command and type ls, in this case man is the command and ls is user supplied data. It's an argument. Okay, not an option. It has no dash or no hyphen. So look at the man pages here, the ls command, and then you type in the options and then a file. So this file is an argument. So ls, here are all of the options you can type in. -b, -c, -color, all this stuff. They are options. The program does special things when you type in these options. Okay. And then file is a path to a file or a directory, and that's arbitrary user data because you could name your directories whatever you want. So it can be pretty much anything. Okay, options can't be anything, but they're all arguments to the ls command. So ls-l, -l is an argument and an option, and then the path I want to look in, let's look at the root of the directory, which is just slash, or the root of the file system. So look at that. The -l, special option for the command, it tells it to list things out vertically and give extra information. And then the last is a user supplied argument. Alright. So number 17, what type of data is stored in an HTML document? 6 people wrote images, videos, music, and text. A website appears to have all that stuff in it, but what we've been writing are just plain text documents. There's nothing in it except plain text. If we take Adam here, and I want to make an HTML page, let's save this on the desktop. My HTML, my page. Okay. I have an HTML document here and an Atom. I can type HTML. This is just plain text. This is the basics of an HTML document, and that's not the same as an element. Each one of these is an element. This and all of its children is an HTML element. This head element and all of its children, that's an HTML element. This meta element, okay, these are elements, and this entire thing is an HTML document, and that's just a normal text file with plain text in it. Now on a website you can see images, videos, and all that because this plain text document links to them. You can have hrefs or iframes that link to YouTube videos, but none of that is technically in the HTML document. Okay, it's just plain text in there. Okay, so and then one person had base64 encoded strings. Those are actually a way to encode binary data into a string. So that's kind of outside the scope of this course. I just tossed that in there because it's a technical thing you may have heard, but that's not what's inside an HTML document. You can have them inside, but that's not the entirety of it. Okay. So question 18, what's the generic structure of an HTML element look like? Okay. The correct answer is you have some tag name, and then these are called attributes, and they're equal to an attribute value surrounded by quotes, and then any children that are inside, and then you close the tag. You don't always have to close the tag, but this is in general, most tags are like this. Okay. A lot of you confused HTML element with HTML document. Okay, it's an important distinction. This is an HTML element. It's the HTML element, but it's not the generic structure of an HTML element. Alright, and this is just, you put that at the top of an HTML file. It's in HTML4, you used to be able to do comments with less than exclamation point and no hyphens. And so the reason you have this at the top is it's supposed to be an HTML comment, but it's not an HTML5 comment because those have two hyphens on either, on the opening and close, like that. See, that's a comment. So the reason you have this at the top of the page is for backwards compatibility with old browsers. They're expecting a string that looks like this, and you can have different types of things here like XML, stuff like that, but that's outside the scope of this course. So that answer was just kind of there. I just threw that out there. Alright, can all tags have children? No, not all tags can have children. An example is the image tag. There's no children allowed on the image tag. The link tag's another one. There's several, and by link tag I mean not the A tag, the actual link tag to link CSS. Okay, so there are tags that do not have children and they can't have children. So a couple people said yes to that. What CSS property changes the text color? Alright, it's color. I just did text color to throw you off because there is color, which is text color, and then background color is the background color. Okay, what we've done color a whole bunch of times, so just remember that it's just color for text. Alright, in JavaScript, assuming you have a function called foo that takes two arguments, how would you call the function in order to execute the code within it? Okay, we've talked about this a couple times, and arguments are a common thing in programming. We have arguments on the command line, which is ls-l and slash are both arguments, okay? And you separate the arguments with a space. That's on the command line. In JavaScript, write some JavaScript here. If you have a function, you declare a function with the function keyword, then you write the name of the function, open and close parentheses, and curly brackets. If you want arguments to your function, you name the arguments x and y, and you separate them with a comma. Okay? I put a space there because it looks better, but it's the comma that's the important thing that separates the arguments. And this is the function declaration. Okay, so the code inside this function doesn't get run until I execute the function. So you have to declare the function and then execute it to get the code to run. Console.log, and I can say x is x and y is y. So console.log here, I'm providing it 4 arguments. This is a string of characters. It's a string because it's surrounded by quotes. an x is a variable, so whatever I provide to the foo function here, and then y colon space is a string, and the fourth argument I'm providing to console.log is whatever stored in y. Okay, so if I say to call this function, to execute it, alright, it takes two arguments. How would you call the function in order to execute the code within it? Okay, so you can do foo and then argument 1 and argument 2. So whatever I supply, I can go foo and then the second argument I can have the string there, and I've provided it with two arguments. Those can be anything. I can have a number here. I can say 12 and 64, and I can also do variables. For my x equals 100, and then my y equals 500, and then I can call foo my x and my y. So what gets passed into foo is this argument data. 100 is stored in this variable my x, so my x now is referencing this value 100. Then 500, we're declaring a variable and assigning it a value. The equals operator is an assignment operator. So we have var my y, and we're setting that variable equal to the value 500. So when I call foo, I'm passing in whatever I have stored in my x, which that could be something from the user I got from the website, so I don't necessarily know what's in here. In this particular case I do because I explicitly defined it, but in a web page you might not. So I'm calling the function with this variable and this variable. So what that does is in this function, x gets whatever value was stored in my x. So that's 100. So in this function, x is 100, and then my y is 500. So in our function declaration, this argument is y, and we passed in this variable which is holding 500. So y becomes 500. So this would output x is, let's see, 100, and then y is 500. That would log to the console. Okay, so that was kind of one of the tougher ones. Alright, in the Linux terminal, what is the tilde character shortcut for? That is a shortcut for the path to your home directory. Let's get the terminal back up. See, right now I'm in my terminal, it says tilde because I'm in my home directory. This is a standard Ubuntu operating system installation. On the CS server, your home directories are in slightly different locations, but on most Linux systems, it's /home/ whatever your username is, and that's your home directory. So if I do cd /home/luke, I'm still there. If I print working directory, I'm in /home/luke. Okay. If I change directories to the root directory, okay. If I print working directory, I'm in root. This one single slash is the root directory of a Linux file system, and it's similar to in Windows the C drive. And on Mac, the root of the directory is / also. Mac is Unix based, which is really similar to Linux. Unix is proprietary software, and Linux is based off of Unix, but it's open source, which means it's free and anybody can edit the code in there, and you can link it. You can branch off, other people's code and do whatever you want with it. Okay, so it's really nice. Open source stuff is pretty cool. So if I go back to the tilde character, if I type cd tilde, that takes me home. cd / is the path of the root of the file system. If I type cd slash desktop. Okay, my desktop folder is in my home directory, and then it's in the desktop directory underneath that. Print working directory. Okay. So tilde is a path shortcut for your home directory. What is an absolute path? Okay, we had some trouble with this. Difference between an absolute path and a relative path. Okay, so I've got a visual here. Okay, this is a common Linux file system. Okay, the root of the file system is slash. Okay, and then you'd have home and then usernames. On the CS server it's slash and then u1 slash class and then your user account homes. So it's like 4 levels deep. Alright, on this standard system, oops, where'd it go? Just shut down on me. Let's do, there we go. Okay, so let's do an example of an absolute path. We need some text. Absolute path always starts with the slash. It starts with the root of the file system. It's generally considered to be the shortest path to it. But so if we went to Patrick's school folder, the absolute path would be slash home slash Patrick slash school. Okay, that's an absolute path and it's the shortest path. So that's generally what you refer to when you say absolute path, but it must start with the root of the directory. Okay, you can technically have absolute paths that go different places. So you can use the parent. So if I went to say slash home and then went slash bill and then dot dot slash, go back up a directory and go Patrick slash school. This is sort of technically an absolute path, but it's got this shortcut in there. And a true absolute path doesn't have any shortcuts. A true absolute path won't start with a tilde. A true absolute path is going to be start with the root of the file system and have the shortest path to the location in the file system that you're looking for. Okay, so in this case, that's start with slash, then we go home, then we go to Patrick, and then we go to school. Okay. Here, oops. All right, let's delete this. Just open a new one. Okay. Now here is a relative path. Let's say we're working in Patrick's home directory. So here, let's say print working directory, we would say this said cd home, clear the terminal, shut down on me again. Okay, we're in the home directory. A relative path goes from one location in the file system to another, not the root. So if I'm in my home directory and I type cd dot dot slash, that's going to go up one directory. So like on the Linux server, that's going to be slash u1 slash class. And then you can see all of the other student folders. And then I can go CS151 XX, some other student directory. Okay, or I do a lot of examples in my CS151.00 account. Okay, and then you could look at some example file. Alright, so this is a relative path from your home directory. You wouldn't change directories to this, but this path here would be from your directory on the CS server. The // goes to the parent, which goes up one level, which is class, and then this takes you to my CS151-100 home folder, and then some file in there named example.html. So relative, going back to our picture, relative starts in some other location that's not the root, and it can go up and back down, or if you're just in the home folder, a relative location is just Patrick. Patrick is relative to home. I don't need any // or anything like that. Okay, so relative is always from one place that's not the root to another. Alright, let's get back to our data file here. Okay, a lot of people said it was a path to the root of the file system, and that's not true. That's just a slash. Alright, what is a relative path? I just went over that. Any path relative to another starting location in the file system, and there can be many. Yeah, everybody seemed to think that it was relative to your home directory. Okay. In the Linux terminal, what does print working directory, the pwd command do? Prints the working directory. It's close to password, PASSWD, but it's not what that is. Print working directory. Some people said it prints the contents of a file or files to the terminal. That's the cat command. If I type cat, it concatenates the text of a file or multiple files that you pass in as arguments, and it prints it to the terminal screen. Okay. In the Linux terminal, what is a command argument? Any additional data supplied to the command, separated by spaces after the command itself. Okay, we went over that. A lot of you thought the argument was the entirety of the command, and then somebody thought it was the command name, and the command is just the command name. Okay. So, do all tags have to be closed? Nope. There are some tags that do not need to be closed. I tend to like to close all of them because it's easier than having to remember which ones specifically don't need to be closed. But the BR tag doesn't need to be closed. The LI tag, there's several tags that don't need to be closed. And so, just so you know, they don't all have to be, but I tend to close them all just because it's easier. Alright, in the Linux terminal, what is // a shortcut for? The parent directory. How can you transfer the contents of a file from your local machine to the CS server? I had 3 different answers here. A lot of you picked this one, which is a good one because that's the one I use the most. But you can also copy, if you're typing an atom, I can just copy everything here to my clipboard and then log in the terminal or PuTTY, and then you open a file with Pico and then paste the stuff in there. So that's one way you can do it. It's kind of tedious. There's another way, which is using the SCP command, which stands for secure copy. So to copy a file in Linux, it's the CP command and then the path to source file.txt, and then path to destination file2.txt. Okay, so scopy allows you to do the same thing. Copy copies one file to another on your own file system. Secure copy lets you copy one thing from your computer to another file system, or from another file system to your computer. Okay, so it bridges that barrier, from your computer out to the internet, and the S stands for secure, so people can't watch what you're doing. All right, what are HTML attributes? Okay, HTML document, it's anything after the tag name that has an equals after it. Almost universally, they have quotes. There are a few cases where they don't, but mostly the value has quotes around it. Okay. So, but it's basically just a way to provide additional information to the element. Okay, so if you have an image tag, you need some extra information for it to display the image. The extra information you need is a path to an image file. Okay, so you're just giving the tag a little bit of extra information. A button, you provide an on-click attribute, and that tells the button what to do when it's clicked, what JavaScript function to call. Okay. In the Linux terminal, what does the cat command do? It prints the contents of a file or files to the terminal. Okay. Somebody said it prints whatever arguments you supply to the terminal and can display the contents of a system variable. That's the echo command. The echo command does that. What is the difference between a div tag and a span tag? The correct answer is generally span tags are used to wrap text, and they lay out horizontally, but by default when divs are block elements that lay out vertically by default. Okay, so spans, if I type something in here, okay, I've got two tags right next to each other. In the code they're on different lines, but the spans will render horizontally. So if I open up my page here, you see hey there right next to each other. If on the other hand I made these divs, okay, they lay out vertically. Divs are generally used when you have bigger structures. For example, if you had like a nav bar, you had a heading and then a navigation bar on the left, and then different sections of your web page. Divs are generally used to divide those sections and kind of organize the structure of your page. Spans mostly are just used to wrap text and then put some style attributes or a class around the text for the most part. Okay, so that's that one. In an HTML attribute, what character do you use to pair it to its value? That's the equal sign. The quote surrounds the value. So here we have attribute name equals, and then the value is surrounded by quotes. Alright. In JavaScript, what keyword do you use to define a variable? This was pretty easy, but somebody fell for my tricks, and I made it look like it was a function. Okay, but that's not what you do. It's just var. Here we've got var stands for variable. I'm declaring a variable, whatever name I want here. Oops, can't have spaces. And then equals value. You don't have to set it to a value either. You can just do that. Alright, that's it. So everybody did pretty well. Next time, I'm probably going to make the test a little bit longer and add in a question or two that's open-ended, and probably a little programming coding assignment or something like that. But overall, you guys did pretty well. So that's it for the overview of Exam 1.